Hello, and welcome to the second part of your Metabolism Engineering internship, Researching Ingredients in Metabolism. So we already finished part one of this project, which was learning about the overview of what is required of you when designing a nutrition bar. And now we're going to begin the first step in the engineering process, the research step. Now that we know the problem, we need to research everything surrounding it. In this case, we're going to research the nutrition bar itself and what it takes to make it. We're going to do this in a couple of steps. First, we're going to say, what does it take to make a nutrition bar? How does the nutrition bar tester tool that we have at Amplify help us and work with this? What's a trade-off? How do I optimize my bar to make it the best it can be? And how do I build for two criteria? Remember, criteria are line items or things you need to check off in order to meet your goals. In this case, we're going to begin by understanding what goes into our nutrition bar. You'll notice we have these ingredients: raisins, pumpkin seeds, non-fat milk powder, puffed wheat, puffed rice, soybeans, nutritional yeast, dark chocolate chips, and prunes. You can see these in more detail by going to your dossier and reading about them individually. This is an idea of what they look like if you haven't seen them before, and you can see the information about them here. You can also see it in your tester tool, which we'll go over in a bit. But before we do that, let's understand what exactly is involved in each of these ingredients by blowing up these raisins and taking a look at what we can see here. So firstly, we have the name and a small graphic of what a raisin looks like to help us pick it out right away. The color is also important because you'll use that when identifying what goes into a bar. I'll show you that in the next slide. The next thing we can do is remove or add grams to our nutrition bar. Our nutrition bar will be made up of 100 grams of these ingredients. If you don't know what a gram is, it's a way of measuring something, kind of like a pound. To give you an idea of how much a gram weighs, 450 grams makes up 1 pound. That means that these nutrition bars, which are 100 grams, are roughly a fourth of a pound. Next, we have these three things that revolve around our metabolistic needs. So if you remember the criteria from the first lesson, the first part is your metabolic need, or your metabolistic needs. We'll call it metabolic needs. The taste score, so how tasty it is. And then the cost, how much money does it take to use this ingredient. In particular, proteins, as we know from our metabolism lesson, relate to how we grow and repair our cells. Carbohydrates break down into starch, which turns into glucose, and that makes energy for us. The glycemic index tells us how quickly something can be broken down in our body. A higher score means we get energy faster, and a lower score means we get energy slower. The taste score, which again tells us how tasty it is, 10 being the highest. You can see it on the dark chocolate chips. They have a score of 10. And the cost per kilogram, which is how much money it costs to get these things. If you don't know how much a kilogram weighs, it's about 1,000 grams, so about 2.5 pounds. All right, now that we've covered what's in these, let's go and take a look at how we can use them in a nutrition bar. So this is our nutrition bar tester. We build a Futura bar, or a nutrition bar, by selecting 1 gram at a time and adding them in till we have a total of 100. In this case, you'll notice that there are multiple colors, and this indicates what's in there. I'll notice there's one little orange dot. This is to indicate a pumpkin seed. The purple is grapes, and this green one is soybeans, and the others are a variety of different ingredients that I've included to show you what it looks like. But this is a useful at-a-glance tool so you can tell what's inside. Your bar is rated and shows you exactly what it has in it. It has these things: a protein percentage of 15, carbohydrates of 85, a glycemic index of 67. It has a taste score of 5.7, which is actually quite good. It costs less than $1, which is very good for cost, and it's serving rescue workers. For the first week and a half, you'll almost only pick normal oxygen with rescue workers. You could also choose patients to see that, but we'll get there in a couple days. Once you send it to the lab, it'll tell you this information. These are the rescue workers who are going to use our nutrition bar. They have different needs, and we need to meet them by learning to read these graphs to see if they were met. Let's go over each of the rescue workers and their needs now, so you know what to look for. The rescue worker 1 is the average rescue worker who goes out and searches for injured people. They travel long distance for long periods of time, so they need lasting energy. So to find out if they're being met on their lasting energy, we have to look at the energy test at the bottom here. This energy test tells us what percentage of people who tried our nutrition bar had their energy needs met. In this case, only 61% of the workers had their energy needs met for 15 minutes, and 37% had their needs met for 60 minutes. This is not an ideal nutrition bar for the rescue worker 1 because we want to get closer to 70 to 80% to really have our bar make sense. If we give a proposal that said only 1 in 3 of our rescue worker 1s had their energy needs met for 60 minutes, our bar would not be very good. Alright, moving on to rescue worker 2. Rescue Worker 2 is the opposite of Rescue Worker 1. They need to move quickly, and they need to be able to pull people out, sprint, dig, or swim. They need energy right away. So Rescue Worker 1 needed energy that lasted. They needed it to last the 60 minutes. Rescue Worker 2, by comparison, needs it to last the 15 minutes. Again, our bar is not very good for this group because only 47%, so about half of them really got the energy needed from the bar. You want it to be closer to 70 or 80%. Alright, Rescue Worker 3. These people are teenagers, so these are people who volunteer for things like Salvation Army and other charitable organizations that send them to help out in disaster relief. So they need to grow and repair and have energy. So our bar for them will mostly focus on growth and repair. This bar is terrible for them. It only has 27%. That means 1 out of every 4 people who ate our nutrition bar got what they needed, and the others were not content with it. So we cannot sell this bar to them in a proposal. We need to make some changes to it to have it work for Rescue Worker Group 3. Lastly, Rescue Worker Group 4. These people do it all. They need energy that lasts, but they also need to move fast when people are trapped. So they need their energy needs to be met as much as possible. So while Rescue Workers 1 needed the first 60 minutes to be done, Rescue Workers 2 needed the first 15 minutes to be great. Rescue Worker 4 needs their energy needs met all day long. So they need both these bars to be close to 70 or 80%. All in all, my bar was not very good for a first try. And that's because I need to understand what exactly is a trade-off. In my bar, I put a lot of things in, and I needed to make sure that I understood the trade-off I was making, what I was getting for what I was giving. That's a lot of words to say, so let's try a more practical example. In particular, I focused on Rescue Group 3, the teenagers, who were the most affected by my bar. They had the lowest score of their growth and repair needs, so I made sure to give them a bar that would change that. I filled it with a bar that was nothing but nutritional yeast. This is because nutritional yeast had the highest protein, which affects their growth and repair. And as you can see, 88% of them had their needs met, which seems great. However, you'll notice my taste score on my bar is a 2, which means it tastes awful. So at first, it seems great because I met my criteria number 1, which is their metabolic needs were met. They got all the growth and repair they needed. But my criteria policy for taste was not met at all. So I made a trade-off. I traded their taste for their growth and repair needs. So the question now becomes, how do I optimize or adjust my bar to meet more needs so that it works out better? To do that, I made a mixture of a bar that was made from nutritional yeast and dark chocolate, which has the highest taste index, the taste score. So you can see here that the score for Group 3 was roughly the same, 87%. So almost all of them still had their growth and repair needs met. But now they have a bar that has some pieces of dark chocolate chips in it. So it is both healthy for them, because it meets their metabolic needs, and it meets the criteria for their taste. This is called building for 2 criteria. My criteria were to meet the metabolic needs and have a high taste score. I did not meet the keep a cost low criteria though, because if we go back and look, you can see that my nutritional yeast costs me $24 per kilogram and dark chocolate costs $22 per kilogram. So it's very expensive to make this bar. If I wanted to change my criteria so that I built for having a high taste score and keeping the cost low, it'd be very easy to choose raisins, because raisins is one of the tastiest items I can choose with a score of 8, and it costs the least of all the tasty items in the menu. So I made a health bar that was nothing but raisins to show how this works. Alright, now that you've gotten a chance to look at this, it's time to see exactly what's expected of you for the day. You're supposed to use these things you've seen in this video to go ahead and build bars for only 1 criteria at a time. So basically, you need to make the best tasting bar, the best protein bar for growth and repair, and you need to provide the best bar that has the best burst of energy and the longest lasting energy. Then you need to follow through on a self-assessment. Normally we skip these because they only provide context for you if your grades are really good in this class. And if they're really good in this class, you don't really need to assess. But in this case, it's important that you check in with yourself, because my goal is to teach you as little as possible, only to help you learn for yourself as much as possible. And to help you with that learning process, you need to check in with yourself and see how you're doing. Because if there are things you don't understand, you need to know that as soon as possible so you can go back and learn them before moving on in the lesson plan. Once you've done both these assignments and turned them in, you're done for the day on both Part 1 and Part 2, and you're ready to move on to tomorrow's unit. And I'll see you for that tomorrow.